When the whole family comes together to watch the game, nobody wants to miss a second of the action to run to the grocery store. With Instacart, you can get all your weekly groceries in as fast as an hour. Less time shopping means more game time. Let's go. Visit instacart.com to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. $10 minimum per order. Additional terms apply.
This is GoPowercat.com publisher Tim Fitzgerald with great news to share with our valued 24/7 Sports VIP members. As a way of saying thank you, a subscription to a CBS All-Access commercial-free plan is now included with your 24/7 Sports VIP membership at no additional cost. Watch all of your favorite shows on demand along with exclusive access to GoPowercat's award-winning and one-of-a-kind coverage of Kansas State sports. Stream more than 10,000 episodes, all access originals, and live TV, including NFL on CBS games. Enjoy the CBS All Access commercial-free plan, a $99.99 annual value for the lifetime of your 24/7 Sports VIP membership. It's an incredible added value for our subscribers, and it's time you probably take advantage of this deal and become a GoPowercat member. And remember to subscribe to the Powercat Podcast at your favorite podcast provider, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Now, here is your Powercat Podcast.
The following is a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. You've discovered your link to GoPowercat.com's Powercat Pregame Podcast, presented by Robbins Motor Company, and it starts right now. Now, let's go to the WTC Gig-Powered Studios. Here's your host, GoPowercat.com publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
K-State will head back on the road this week following its 38-10 victory over rival Kansas as it travels to Austin, Texas to face the Texas Longhorns. The game, which will kick at 2:30 p.m., will air on ESPN. The contest can also be heard across the 39-station K-State Sports Network with Wyatt Thompson on the call. K-State has won 3 games in a row following its victory over Kansas and Lawrence and is bowl eligible under first-year head coach Chris Kleiman. And when the first edition of the college football rankings were released on Tuesday night, K-State appeared at number 16. Welcome to the GoPowercat.com Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Robbins Motor Company. K-State fans, visit the Robbins Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat location on Anderson Avenue in Manhattan for an exciting test drive. Robbins Motor Company, title sponsor of the Powercat Pregame Podcast. K-State has rushed for 1,738 yards this year on 361 carries, which includes 550 yards over the Wildcats' last 2 contests. The Wildcats also have 25 rushing touchdowns, including 11 in those last 2 weeks, after tallying only 20 rushing scores all of last year. Leading that running attack last week at KU was quarterback Skylar Thompson, in part because K-State basically played the game without its top 2 running backs. James Gilbert sat out the contest, while Jordan Brown took only 2 carries and did not return. Both are expected to play in Austin. Defensively, K-State played its best game of the season at Kansas, but also lost cornerback A.J. Parker to an ankle injury. Parker will not play at Texas and may be lost for a number of weeks. Coming off its second and final bye week of the 2019 season, Texas holds a 5-3 overall record, including a 3-2 mark in Big 12 play. K-State, Texas, and Iowa State are all tied for third in the conference standings. The Longhorns started the season 4-1 with a narrow defeat at the hands of LSU, now the number 1 team in the Associated Press top 25. But UT has dropped 2 of its last 3 games. Quarterback Sam Ehlinger has thrown for 2,378 yards and 23 touchdowns on 199 of 303 attempts, while he is also the team's 3rd leading rusher with 361 yards and has a team high 5 rushing touchdowns. Juwan Mitchell leads Texas with 3 sacks, but the Longhorns are last in the Big 12 in total sacks this season. Ellinger will be a big test for this blossoming Kansas State defense, and Coach Kleiman spoke earlier this week about why Scotty Hazelton's defense is improving as the season wears on.
I just think our guys are understanding more of our scheme, more of what Coach Hayes and the defensive staff are trying to implement. They're feeling more comfortable. It goes back to the same thing. Our practices are getting better on that side of the ball. We're not having to repeat as many things. The guys just are just learning the system better, and that's all you really can say is, we played a few games, had an off week, played a game, have a couple off weeks, and all those banked reps are starting to pay off.
And now let's launch into our GoPowercat roundtable session here on the Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Robbins Motor Company. Tim Fitzgerald, that's me, Ryan Wallace on the phone, Riley Gates and D. Scott Fritchen, your GoPowercat staff, your trusty fellows from GoPowercat.com. We just heard Chris Kleiman talk about the advancement of his defense for these Wildcats, how much better they're getting. Ryan Wallace, they were really good last week. That K-State defense absolutely baffled the University of Kansas.
Yeah, we talked about Brent Dearman coming in, about all the different changes that the Jayhawks had made, and all the, I've listed a litany of statistics of all the different averages that they had increased, and here comes K-State and just absolutely stymies that offense. An offense that we all admit, and still admit, has better playmakers than Kansas has had in quite some time. Andrew Parchment was, almost unheard of for most of that game. The way that they've been able to stymie Puka Williams now for, I think, feels like 2 straight years, where they've come in with heralded Puka, and the way that they've just completely negated his speed and allowed him to get into the open field is really amazing. I think above all else, Fitz, what we've seen the last couple weeks is not only a defense that's starting to understand what Scotty Hazelton wants from them, they're starting to grasp this defense, but I think they're also just starting to really play around the veterans, and you're seeing some of these guys learn from prior mistakes. DeQuan Patton has been tremendous. We're seeing, the difference he's made from junior year to senior year. Wyatt Hubert continues to get a little bit better. And the secondary, obviously we'll talk about A.J. Parker, I'm sure, later today. But prior to his injury, what he was doing has been nothing short of phenomenal, the progress he's made this season.
But Riley Gates will go to Texas without A.J. Parker. Well, they might take him, but he will not be available to play their top cornerback against a team in Texas that has some pretty darn good receivers. How big of a loss is it for K-State's defense?
I think it's brutal. Obviously the top defender on your team leads you in interceptions right now, and A.J. has answered the call this year when it came to, we said before the start of the season, K-State needs a dude out at corner, and we didn't think that they had that, but then A.J. stepped up and he became that. He's done a very good job of limiting these elite explosive receivers in Big 12 play so far. I think he's kept them in check pretty well. So, yeah, losing him is I think it's a blow that you really cannot emphasize enough how important he is to the defense. However, I feel good with Kevion McGee stepping in there. I think they have some options there, potentially maybe even see some Lance Robinson. I don't know exactly what they're thinking. We kind of talked about it this week in our group text messages with how they want to play with the nickel. That kind of shifts some people around too. But they have some options to come in and replace AJ. And I think that they're not, scrubs. I think they're quality players to come in, but there's no way you can look past this and say it's not a big deal, because I think Texas can target the replacement now and really kind of attack them with one of the nation's best quarterbacks.
Next topic, Kansas State is 6-2, 3-2 in the Big 12. Picked 9th in the conference, and now they're tied for 3rd with Texas and Iowa State with 4 games to go. Oh, and by the way, somehow they're ranked 16th in the first college football playoff rankings.
Just like we all saw coming.
I'm more surprised by that than the 6-2. That 6-2 got them that high. is impressive. Boy, Scott Fritchen, K-State's in a good position as they go to Austin.
Yeah, who would have thought? It's been quite the journey for K-State. I really enjoyed talking to the players throughout the week just about this climb that they've been on. Talking with Colin Klein also about it. Remember, in 2011, they kind of took a climb as well, and he was just talking about the similarities between that 2011 squad and this squad, just from the sole basis of just getting a little bit better each day. And you talk about Chris Kleiman and about attack each day, each play, and so on and so forth, and it's really paid dividends for this team. Right now, K-State has its longest Big 12 winning streak since 2016 and has reached bowl eligibility its earliest in the season since 2014.
Ryan Wallace, as you see the college football playoff rankings unveiled on Tuesday night, I don't know about you, but I was expecting K-State to be in them, but not at 16. How stunned were you by that?
Really stunned? I mean, there's no other way around it. You got through what they show, the first 5, and so you're kind of wondering, all right, no K-State in that one, and then they're kind of coming up on that next 5, and you're just going, well, okay, K-State might be 19th here or something like that. But I mean, to knock on the door of the top 15, I think it says a lot about how much they take into account what Kansas State did against Oklahoma. I think they're giving a little bit of credit to that win at Mississippi State. I know fans have kind of moved past that now, but Mississippi State, isn't the team they were last year, but I don't think maybe this committee feels they're as bad as maybe the country views them. And I think that they're giving a lot of credit to the Big 12 as well, and understanding what Chris Kleiman and this team are having to go through. So I think you pile all that together, and I guess it warrants a 6-2 Kansas State team knocking on the door of the top 15.
The biggest thing that it speaks to is the fact that I don't think that they think K-State's winning by flukes. I think that they've taken note of how dominant K-State's been in some of these wins. The Oklahoma win ends up being a 7-point game, but I think they understand how that game went. And all you have to do is look at the team at 17 right there, Minnesota, undefeated. I think they're 13th in the AP poll, and yet K-State's ahead of them with 2 losses in the college football playoff rankings. Obviously, that stirred up some controversy in the national media this week. But
got to play people.
Yeah,
that is the message.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's really means a lot for what K-State's done with those wins.
Well, it really even adds another layer of intrigue into this game, because we talked about it in Wednesday's Questions podcast. What is K-State's bowl projections and where they would end up? We talked about Orlando with the Camping World Bowl, horrible name. We talked about the Alamo Bowl. The matchup may be better in Florida, but the Alamo Bowl's a little more prestigious. Guys, it looks like if they continue to win, they will be in a New Year's Day 6 bowl. I mean, they will earn their spot in whether or not they're in the Big 12 championship. There's a chance that they could end at 10-2 and have Baylor and Oklahoma be 11-1, and they would meet. The rankings might drive K-State still into the game. It's incredible to me. It's absolutely baffling to me. But back to this game a little bit, D. Scott. K-State's offense, since they started running Skylar Thompson as using him to carry the ball again, they've really hit their stride at the right time of the season.
It's been unbelievable, Fitz. Much credit to Courtney Messingham and this offense. The most yards against Oklahoma in 11 years. And then the next week against Kansas, they rack up their most yardage against a Big 12 team since 2016, which is incredible. But, yeah, the option is alive and well in K-State's playbook, apparently. They've been working on that. And credit Skylar Thompson, this offensive line, what can you say? It's been dominant. They've done a great job. I've really enjoyed seeing the balance in this offense, and then Skylar Thompson, 30 rushes, 166 yards, and 7 touchdowns against these two teams. Most rushing touchdowns since Colin Klein in 2012. It's just really unbelievable, and he's on the verge now of becoming just the 4th quarterback in K-State history to have 3,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards in a career. That's amazing.
Skylar Thompson's really settled into a comfort zone. He was uncomfortable for 2 or 3 games in the Big 12, he was really not very comfortable against TCU until he broke loose for that run. It's almost like once he gets running, it helps him mentally. The line has protected. The line has made the running game much easier. They ran the ball, Ryan Wallace, without their top 2 guys in Lawrence. This offense is clicking right now, but it's really all about Skylar Thompson and that offensive line. It's been a really almost a magical transformation here as K-State's picked up steam and won 3 in a row.
Well, yeah, I mean, I give credit where credit is due, and Skylar Thompson deserves a lot of that, just his maturation over the period of this year. But I think you hit the nail on the head with the offensive line. I think they got back to the drawing board mid-season, particularly like right after the Baylor game, had that week to prepare for TCU and obviously Oklahoma and on down the line. And I think Connor Riley and Courtney Messingham, Chris Kleiman went back to the drawing board, figured out, what was really working for them as far as the gap assignments, especially with the interior. We've seen Adam Holtorf really get back to the play that we saw him have earlier in the year, and it's kind of just extended there out. But I really think you've got to give credit where credit is due, not only to Skylar Thompson, but the interior of this offensive line. France and Kaltmeyer have been effective. Don't get me wrong, but I think what the guards and Adam Holtorf have been able to do these last few weeks has really been what's propelled Skylar Thompson's feet, but also just the horses that they have in the stable of the backfield, regardless of who's toting it.
Yeah, they're moving defensive players around. They're kind of manipulating them. A lot of it's pre-snap confusion by the defense, offensive linemen flying at them from different angles. But the running backs have been pretty good. They got through last week against a beaten down KU defense with Harry Trotter as the primary back, but we saw some other guys step in. This week, though, Riley, they're supposed to have back their horses. James Gilbert and Jordan Brown and Harry Trotter, they will be back to being able to use that inverted wishbone, the 3 guys scattered around Skylar Thompson. I think they'll use it. I think it'll be fun to watch.
I think they'll have to use it. I think you're going to want to find ways to confuse this Texas defense. I think the passing game is going to be really hard to come by for K-State in this game, just with all the injured players that Texas is getting back in the secondary. And so I think the running game is going to have to be the source of success for this K-State offense. And obviously that inverted wishbone is going to be key because it's very hard to stop. You just don't know who's getting the ball out of that, unless you're psychic. I mean, there's really no way to predict it. I think that James and Jordan are both, I think they'll probably both play. They'll probably be healthy technically at around 100%, but also likely to aggravate an injury, if it gets a little physical. So, keep an eye out for that. But is it weird that I feel comfortable even if, they're not at 100% or they can't go as much? Because I think we saw a lot out of Harry Trotter. I just feel like maybe he hasn't gotten his shot because of James and Jordan being ahead of him. And I think Joe Irvin is a very capable back right behind him if they decide to burn his red shirt in this game. And you also have I think they will too. And you also have Tyler Burns, who we saw kind of get in there and get some action. So, yeah, you want James Gilbert and Jordan Brown back there. It's obviously going to make the offense click a whole lot better. The running game is going to be a lot smoother. But I like their options no matter who they're going to. Maybe I'm being a little bit blinded by KU, but I feel really good about where the running game's at.
Well, let's have a reminder here that they survived KU without their top 2 running backs. People stepped up. They survived Mississippi State without Wyatt Hubert. People stepped up. There's no indication so far that they won't get through A.J. Parker and the problems that might present now that they have to play without him, at least at Texas, and probably for longer than that. Speaking of injuries, boy, did the Texas defense have a lot of injuries so far this season. They had the off week last week. They healed up. They expect some of these guys to be back, but they still are probably going to be rusty. They have to show some consistency on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they really do. Fitz, I think that if K-State has its way and is able to establish a run early and punch them in the mouth, they're going to really have success against this Texas defense. Texas, ladies and gentlemen, is giving up its most total yards per game this season than it has during any season in the last decade, which is amazing. Right now, they're 8th in the Big 12 in allowing 4.53 yards per carry. Yes, they do get Stearns back, Caden Stearns and B.J. Foster in the secondary. They could get some other guys back, but I just don't know. if they're going to have the consistency and be able to gel against this Kansas State offense, which all of a sudden is just racking up some really substantial yards.
That's where I'm at right now. I can't decide where I'm leaning on Texas players getting back. Caden Stearns is phenomenal safety, and I think that he takes this Texas defense and makes it drastically different. But like D. Scott just pointed out, they got that rust. They haven't played in a while. You know, Caden Stearns hasn't been on the field. I think the Oklahoma State game for Texas. So where am I at on that? It's just very tough for me to decide right now.
Oh, Ryan Wallace, the front of this Texas defense, they keep talking about these injuries in the back end. I will accept that it's been dramatic and has affected them, but they haven't been able to stop the run, and they're dead last in the Big 12 in sack yardage. The front of this Texas defense has not played up to advertisements. This is an area that K-State's offensive line can really take advantage of.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do think that, you know, when you look at the defensive line that the Longhorns are going to throw out, it's not as imposing as Baylor or TCU. You know, honestly, it's more like Oklahoma, you know, and to me, and we saw what Kansas State was able to do, you know, against the front that the Sooners put up. But I don't know. I think, you know, maybe I'm being pessimistic here. Maybe I'm not putting as much stock into the KU game, but you know, I think the injuries are more telling for the statistics that the Texas defense has allowed than I think most people are willing to lead on. You know, I do think the back half of that Texas secondary will impact the run game. You know, and I think not having them has really hurt. You're looking at guys that, you know, they had 5 starters in that season opener that have missed 20 of 64 games. You know, I mean, we're looking at players that, you know, 24 healthy games from a lot of key players, like less than 40% of guys that are key contributors have been available for Todd Orlando. I think this Texas defense, if you go back and you watch them play LSU, you go back and you watch them play Louisiana Tech, they're not that bad. And that's because a lot of these players were healthy. Now you're getting them with a week's rest. And, oh, by the way, they have a ranked team coming into Austin. And, oh, by the way, they're coming off a loss. All of those things historically have been really good for Texas. That's good news for Texas. They're 10-2 as a home favorite since 2017, 10-2 after a loss since 2017. As good as Kansas State has been, the pessimist in me says this is looking like a very daunting task for a team that's kind of ripe for an upset.
Okay, who invited the realist into this discussion?
Well, he just used the word upset for Texas over Kansas State. How about that?
It's kind of funny. We will say this about Texas. They are at a crossroads. They really are. I want to start with you, Riley Gates. This Texas team, man, I'm telling you what, I don't know where they're at. Are they backed up against the wall and ready to come out fighting like an injured animal, or are they an injured animal that wants to limp off in the bushes and is waiting to be finished off?
I think if you're Texas, you have to be in the mindset of that this is a must-win game.
They need to be.
I mean, we're not just talking about a Texas team that at the start of the season wanted to win the Big 12. This was a Texas team that wanted to play for the college football playoff. Now, they're not going to be in that discussion, obviously. It doesn't really matter what they do down the stretch. They're not going to be there. But the Big 12 championship is still in play for them, as kind of wild as that is to believe. But it's still in there. And I think that Texas really knows, you know, this is going to come off as a very unsuccessful season, considering how last year ended. If you don't start doing something with this and getting beat by Kansas State after a bye week, that would not be a good look. So I think Texas personally is going to come out very fired up to play, but I think Kansas State's on the same page right now. I mean, I think they know what they can do with this, how much of a statement win it would be. I'm not anticipating Texas being kind of battered down and a little bit hiding in the bushes, like you said.
D. Scott, I use the word crossroads in setting that up for Riley. This Texas team really is at a crossroads. If you talk to people out of Austin, and we will in a little bit talk to our friends from Horns 24/7, there's a lot of talk about Herman. And kind of teetering right now, people have lost a lot of faith in him this season. I don't know if that's fair, but this is a biggie for Texas. Yeah,
Riley, you and I were both in Arlington for Big 12 Media Day, and we heard how confident Tom Herman was when he spoke about the CFP and about the lofty aspirations for Texas. They began the season at number 10. Now they're completely out of the AP poll. And just the fact that Tom Herman had to address the situation, I think, speaks volumes, because his quote was, "We're on the ropes. You can do one or two things. You can fight all your way off the ropes, or you can tell your trainer to throw in the towel. From all accounts, everybody is pushing in the same direction." Now, just for him to say that,
it says a lot. To admit that they're having that kind of level of doubt and problems in that locker room, Ryan Wallace, I think this is a make-or-break game for Coach Herman. You lose to Kansas State right now in front of your home crowd. Whatever it is about Kansas State, they just can't quite get out of their head that they should be so far superior to Kansas State. So a loss to the Wildcats seems magnified, even though K-State, as you just said, is the better team. Is this a huge game for Tom Herman?
I think it's a big game, but at the end of the day, I think what's going to keep Tom Herman at his post in Texas is the fact that he still has, according to 247 Sports, the number 6 recruiting class in the country. This is a defense that, as we've talked about, is very young, an offense that's also been without some key playmakers, especially in the backfield. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to think about, is Tom Herman and his post as head coach worth losing? Right now, the Big 12 is the number 1 recruiting class, and what should be a top 10, possibly top 5 recruiting class coming in 2020. And I just don't know if at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, if Texas administration and fans are going to want to mess with that.
Very good point. As we round out this round table, let's talk a little hoops in this football preview show, because hoops opened on Tuesday night with a nice win over North Dakota State. Now they go to Vegas to play in UNLV. What did you think about the team, Riley Gates, in that opener?
Well, I think it was a tale of two halves, really. I mean, you're 10 of 30 from the floor in the first half. You're 1 of 12 from the outside, and I thought they were taking poor shots. I thought they were playing bad defense. I mean, it just wasn't the K-State basketball we've come accustomed to watching. And then they come out in the second half far more aggressive. We saw Cartier-Jada and Xavier Sneed really take over and put it on their plate to say, hey, we're going to make sure this doesn't a drastic flip. And, then they shoot 50% from the floor. The defense got a little bit better. Look, this is a team that obviously lost a lot from last year. And they're trying to replace it. Not only just replace it, but replace it with youth. We're seeing freshmen on the floor all the time. We're seeing David Sloan, the junior college transfer, on the floor a lot. So it's going to take some time for this team to really start to find itself, just because it is so new. And it's a system, like we've talked about before, that requires a lot of time and continuity in it. So, you just kind of got to be patient. There's going to be some lumps along the way. There's going to be some disappointing performances, I think, and you just got to be careful to not overreact to it one way or the other, because I think this is going to be a very back-and-forth team, and one that, they might show up and somehow beat KU one week, and then they might lose to TCU the next week. So I just don't know where they're at right now, and I think it's going to be a pretty interesting and fun journey to kind of watch as they find themselves.
I agree, and you will fill in for me on the Powercat Postgame Podcast with Brien Hanley. You will both be in Austin together, so that's kind of fun. And I will be in Las Vegas with the basketball team to provide coverage for our GoPowercat subscribers. Well, that will do it for the roundtable session. Thank you, Ryan Wallace, D. Scott Fritchen, and Riley Gates. And as we transition now into a long discussion I had with our colleagues at the 24/7 Texas site, Chip Brown and Taylor Esters, let's hear from Coach Chris Kleiman on just how good this Texas defense can be.
They have great length on defense. They're really physical. They run to the ball really well. There's pressures coming from all over the place. And we'll have our hands full making sure that we can protect Skylar. We have to be able to run the football some. Are they going to allow us to rush the football like we did last week? Probably not. So we have to find some ways to be creative and be efficient in the passing game.
We continue our discussion of K-State at Texas on Saturday now with our colleagues from Horns 24/7, the one and only Chip Brown and the one and only Taylor Esters, two of my dear friends in this industry. Welcome to the Powercat Pregame Podcast. I'm a little confused. Chip, let's start with you. I'm a little confused by Texas. I I'm sure you are too.
Not alone.
Yeah, I expected so much more from them this season. How disappointing has this year been?
Well, it's been really, really disappointing to me on the offensive side of the ball, Fitz, because you look at the injuries on defense, and even with the injuries on defense and guys playing hurt, which we saw against West Virginia and Oklahoma, the defense made plays to ignite the team in those games. I mean, the offense was kind of plodding along, and then it was an interception by Deli Adeoye against West Virginia that kind of sparked the team. And then 4 interceptions later, 3 short field touchdowns later, Texas pulls away from West Virginia. Then against Oklahoma, it's the defense that saves their bacon because OU's going up and down the field like it's nothing. But when they get in the red zone, Texas turns them over, keeps them in the game, and ties the game 10-10 in the third quarter. But it's 10-10. I mean, the Texas defense is doing its job. Sam Ehlinger and the offensive line getting sacked 9 times in that game, which matches a school record of the Miami Hurricanes, who demoralized Texas in the 91 Cotton Bowl. And, I mean, it's just it's confounding to me that the offense, which is Tom Herman's side of the ball,
right,
it's just not gotten it going. Then 4 interceptions from Sam Ehlinger in a loss to TCU where Texas was ahead 20-13 midway through the third quarter. That was a winnable game that the offense threw away. So it is confusing. It's confounding. When I asked Tom Herman about the offense and its lack of fluidity and progress, I mean, the sign of a well-coached team is week-to-week improvement.
Right. And
that offense has not been getting better, Fitz. And Sam Ehlinger, it's like Oklahoma took their lunch money and kind of kicked him in the face, and the offensive line hasn't really recovered from it. Ehlinger hasn't recovered from it. Tom Herman hasn't recovered from it. I think it's been a mess, and that's what I want to see Saturday against K-State. Does Tom Herman and his play calling and Sam Ehlinger and this offensive line, are they on the same page? Because they have the nation's leader in receptions in Devin Duvernay, and Colin Johnson's a 6'6" monster. They don't have any excuses, Fitz, and this offense is not getting it done.
Yeah, Duvernay is a horrible matchup for K-State. A.J. Parker, if he was healthy, would be covering him, and he's only 5'10". And, his substitute might be a little bit bigger, but it's a bad matchup for any defensive secondary, let's be honest. Taylor, let's stay into the touchy-feely stuff, so to speak. I didn't expect to be talking about discontent among the Longhorn Nation with Coach Tom Herman, but here we are, starting to hear the grumblings, and frankly, this is kind of the vicious cycle Texas gets itself caught into, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that, I think one thing that those of us who have covered Texas and who were there when Tom Herman was hired, I think a lot of us recognized that his style was going to be extremely tough. His culture was going to be extremely tough. And if anything was going to be his demise, it might be his ego. And I really think that, what you're seeing from Texas right now, what we're hearing behind the scenes, it's kind of surprising because you would have thought that Texas is a 500 team right now based off of the way that things are going here in Austin. You would have thought that they lost the game to Kansas. Now, no offense to Kansas, but beating Kansas by a last-minute field goal and only winning by 2 points is kind of like a loss in these parts just because, Texas fans, Texas supporters, Texas boosters, everybody expects those games to be blowout wins. And so I think that, I think a lot of the issue right now is the culture is a really, really difficult thing for a lot of players to really come into. Texas has had 2 players enter the NCAA transfer portal within the last couple of weeks, and 3 entered the portal so far this year. And, I think a lot of that had to do with the culture of Tom Herman. And, that works when you're winning. It does, and I think you see that at Alabama. Nobody thinks that Nick Saban's a pushover. I mean, let's be honest about it. Everyone sees him as a tough, hard-nosed type of coach. But you don't hear a lot of the discontent like you're hearing here because it works and they're winning. A 5-3 Texas team that is showing, as Chip mentioned, a lot of issues on Tom Herman's side of the ball is making it probably a little bit worse right now, especially among people that are close to the program, because, you know, the one thing entering this season that everybody expected was the offense to be good. You know, Sam Ehlinger returned. Sam Ehlinger only progressed his sophomore season. You know, the sky was kind of a limit for him entering his junior year. And Tom Herman's offense performed really well last year in 2018 and started off the season doing pretty well. So the games against Oklahoma and TCU, I mean, those were, I think, a bit of a surprise for a lot of people for a number of reasons, but it was because of the offensive issues they were showing. So, you know, when you have a hard-nosed coach like Tom Herman, and already he's going to rub players the wrong way, he's going to rub people the wrong way by the way he handles himself, and then his side of the ball starts struggling, and, you know, he's saying a lot of times in our press conferences when we talk to him, you know, he's giving no excuses for the defense. Yet now he's being questioned and his offense being questioned. All we're hearing are excuses for the offense right now. So It's just kind of interesting. I think a lot of people are seeing through that. So it's going to be a tough challenge. I think this game is going to show a lot of where this team is from an inside standpoint based off of how they can come together, having 2 weeks to prepare. I mean, if they look unprepared against Kansas State, then I think the discontent in the locker room is, you know, kind of shining through.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, K-State's a team right now, Chip, that can make you look bad. And they do things so unconventionally, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. They kind of confounded a very good Oklahoma defense. What we thought was a great, you know, progression by Oklahoma. They look like the same old defense as K-State beat the Sooners 48-41. But let's keep it on the Texas offensive side of the ball. I want to stay there because I don't understand this. Sam Ehlinger is one of my favorite players in the conference. You know, for anyone who's watched Colin Klein at K-State, he has so many of the similar traits. You know, a bulldog, not just as a physical runner, but as a leader. And yet they are struggling, and he is struggling. And for a quarterback progressing down his, you know, through his career, that doesn't seem to be, there's a disconnect there. He should be getting better, and it looks like he's stepping back. Try to break down a little bit more what's gone wrong in this Texas offense.
Well, I think what you've got is a little bit of a disjointed offensive play calling system. You know, I get the feeling that Tom Herman, as the head coach, who did not start off calling plays in year one, but then took over the play calling when Sam Ehlinger was falling apart after the opening game against Maryland last year, where he throws 2 interceptions in the final 5 minutes of a 5-point game, twice had the offense in position to win it and ended up turning the ball over. I think Herman became very hands-on at that point and basically took over, you know, the mental guru approach with Sam Ehlinger and the evolution of the offense. Well, listen, people have film. The coaching in this league is really good, and there are new faces on defense. I mean, Alex Grinch had, you know, first of all, Texas gave him some bulletin board material when Sam Cosmi, the stud left tackle for Texas, was talking about, looking at OU on film, you know, they're good athletes, but nothing too much to worry about. And they haven't really played anyone, and you know, this will be a good test for that. I mean, my God, Neville Gallimore came out looking like Casey Hampton and destroyed them. And 9 sacks later, 15 tackles for loss later. I don't think this offensive line has recovered. Well, that's Tom Herman's job. That's Tom Herman's job, to get them settled down, get them into plays that work. And against TCU, they're running 4 verticals. And I asked Tom Herman about this, which he likes to do. He likes to run the 4 verticals. And the check down is the back. Well, Sam was having the back in helping to protect. There was no check down. So he's getting pressured. He's trying to do too much. He doesn't have the check down. And then he's turning the ball over. Okay, well, at some point, don't you go to the sideline and say, Tom Herman says to Sam Ehlinger, hey, you can't keep the back end to block. If we're running 4 verticals, he's got to be your check down. And I guess at some point, Sam Ehlinger's got to say, well, then let's stop running 4 verticals. Yeah. Because we don't have the time to get that play developed, and it just doesn't seem like they're on the same page. Now, as Taylor said, okay, you've had 2 weeks to prepare. They've had kumbaya He sent the players home after classes on Friday, said, hey, come back late on Sunday. Everybody says they got rest and they're fresh and charged and focused. Let's see it. I mean, people are asking me, is Texas going to cover? I'm like, is Texas going to cover? Is Texas going to win? I mean, I'm tempted not to pick them until they win another game, because the way that this has been shoot, ready, aim on offense, and again, that side of the ball, that surprises me. I sort of had gone out on a limb earlier this year when they went up against Oklahoma saying, hey, don't forget, Herman had one of his best play calling jobs against Oklahoma last year, and he outfoxed Lincoln Riley in that 48-45 win where he had to take the ball down the field to set up the game-winning field goal with 9 seconds left. I had more faith in Tom Herman, the offensive mind. And I don't know, Fitz, if he's having Larry Fedora put the game plan together and then, he's talking about it with Tim Beck and Larry Fedora, and then they're on the headset in a game trying to make adjustments. I mean, that's not how Lincoln Riley's doing it. I guarantee you. He's in the film room. He's doing it all, and he's leading the charge. He knows how to make the adjustments. It just seems like it's not really a cohesive, clean line of communication going to Sam Ehlinger. He looks confused, and he's not being put in a position to succeed. You're right. The guy's a gamer. He's a winner. He'll do anything for this school. He's come up with big moments. He ran his ass off against Georgia, took hit after hit. He ran 7 times on that final drive and was getting killed when he got into the end zone and put it away. I mean, they've got to help him. The coaching is not there right now. It's not Sam. He's pressing, and that's coaching to put him in a better position to succeed. That's what I'm looking for Saturday at 2:30.
Either one of you, defensively, who all are they getting back this weekend after the off week and all the injuries, and how much has that played into the state of the defense? I mean, 48 points against Kansas. It turned into a circus in the fourth quarter, and I don't care if you're down to your second stringers at Texas. That shouldn't happen. It just was nuts to watch that happen.
You're right. You hear the Texas program, that they're going to have athletes on the team. There's no question about that. My father-in-law has been a longtime coach in the state of Texas, and he, he's retired now, so he's watched a lot of college football and he's watched a lot of Texas. And, I was kind of down on the defense early in the year saying, what the heck is going on? These are some, former 5-star prospects, 4-star prospects. And I go to coach, I call him coach, and I go to coach and ask him about it. And he said this to me, and it's really stuck with me since he said it. He said, if the injuries on the Texas defense were spread across the board, then there would be no excuse for Texas to say that injuries are the reason for the defensive performance. He goes, however, the injuries are all in the secondary for the most part, or the middle of the field, with losing Jeffrey McCulloch, a linebacker, also to injury. He was like, I don't care if you are Alabama. I don't care if you're Florida. I don't care if you're Clemson. I don't care if you're LSU. There are very, very, very few teams, if any, out there who would be able to really rebound in having all of those types of injuries in one part of the defense. And, that's really stuck with me. At one point, against TCU, for instance, my goodness, there's a true freshman safety starting alongside of Brandon Jones. And alongside of Montrell Estelle, who, people still don't even know how to spell his name because he's never really seen the field in his first 3 years being at Texas. And then their backups were true freshman cornerback Kenyatta Watson, and then he's a redshirt junior cornerback Donovan Duvernay, who hasn't really seen the field ever since he's been at Texas. So, when you're that diminished, it's hard to. Texas fans don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that injuries really impacted it. But this was already a defense that was entering the year with a lot of question marks, losing 8 starters on that side of the ball, and then losing all of the players in the secondary definitely just added insult to injury, no pun intended there. But I think it'll be interesting to see how well this defense really can rebound this week. We'll be getting back sophomore safety Caden Stearns, sophomore safety B.J. Foster, who plays more nickelback. He will be back. They'll also have cornerback Jalen Green. He returned for the TCU game, but he was still a little bit rusty. He didn't start against TCU just because he had been out since since halftime of the Oklahoma State game, basically, which I believe was October 21st. So He'll had 2 weeks now to get healthy. So, if this secondary struggles as much as it has in recent weeks, then I maybe have to call my father-in-law and be like, I think we were wrong about the injury part of it. It may just be a secondary issue. But I think to be honest, there's just only to go up right now. There's really no place else to go but up because of how, kind of pieced together this defense and secondary has been basically with bubble gum and duct tape. So it's definitely something to watch for everybody.
Because of the long, pathetic history of Kansas State football before Bill Snyder, Kansas State's records against almost every opponent are strongly in favor of opponent, even Kansas. They own the series historically going back, because of what they did before 1950. But Texas was a team that they hadn't encountered until the Big 12 really came around. Texas, oddly enough, is one of the few teams that Kansas State holds an advantage in the all-time series over. It's amazing. And I feel like, and I want you both to give me quick answers on this, a lot of that is Texas never seems to take K-State as seriously as it takes Oklahoma or other opponents. I feel like they kind of look down on Little Brother, and Little Brother keeps winning the games. Is there any reality to that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, K-State was always the more buttoned up, detail-oriented team, and Mac Brown, toward the end, was a victim of legacy prison in my mind.
Yeah.
And love Mac, but at the end, it was, what are you doing for me? Why get me back to the national championship game? Get me back to that game against Alabama that we should have won and we lost. And they lost focus. K-State is always going to be the team that makes you look bad. As you said, Fitz, they are detail-oriented. They are about, very specific, finite goals that it seems every program should be adhering to. But K-State, because of Bill Snyder, because of Chris Kleiman, do an exceptional job. And I think Kleiman's doing a really good job of developing personal relationships that are going to pay off. K-State's going to be a nightmare because these players connect with him. He's tough, but they know he cares. And as Taylor mentioned earlier, Tom Herman burns hot. If he's the bad cop, and he has admitted to me that, look, when I came in, I was the crazy-eyed drill sergeant. Okay, that's how Jimmy Johnson was when he came in to the Cowboys. You better have really good assistants who can be the good cop,
right?
Who can clean up the mess and say, hey, man, he's mad. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I don't think Tom Herman has that right now. I think some assistants are burning too hot, too, and the players are checking. It's a dangerous game if you're going to be the crazy-eyed drill sergeant as the head coach because they have to know you care. And I just think K-State has been the more detail-oriented, better coached team. The Charlie Strong era, oh, Lord. I still remember every minute of that 23-0 shutout. I felt like that game lasted 6 hours. And it was early, too, and the sun was pounding right into the press box. Those 11 a.m. games, Fitz is laughing because he knows what I'm talking about. So, yeah, I mean, it kind of the way that Texas always had Nebraska's number, K-State has had Texas's number. It's funny, it's crazy, it's quirky, but I have a feeling that Chris Kleiman, Tom Herman's 2-0 against K-State, but this is Chris Kleiman now. I think Saturday's going to be a hell of a fight.
It's interesting you said that about Mac because that's kind of how Bill Snyder ended. Kind of lost a little of the focus, didn't recruit as well, talent dropped off, and it really became about, well, I'm just going to stick around and continue to do this because this is what I do. Not really about Kansas State football, and that's why the change was made. Taylor, what do you think? Do you think Texas will be emotionally ready for this game?
I had a conversation with a media member about this today, actually, at the player availability that we had. And I think a lot of us media members have given Texas the benefit of the doubt week in and week out. And at this point, there's really no reason to give Texas the benefit of the doubt based off of how the last 3 games have really gone. I think that, I'm kind of in a show me, don't tell me thing, especially after hearing, for so long that, this team's united, this team's a united front, there's no discord or anything, but then we hear something entirely different. Then there's, transition of players leaving midseason and, recruits decommitting. I mean, there's just a perfect storm of disaster, it seems, brewing right now. And until I see Texas actually play up to the quote-unquote standard they have set, which apparently is to play for championships, we haven't seen that championship level from Texas in covering them, especially in recent weeks. It has not been a team that has performed well on both sides of the ball at the same time. It seems to be one side's doing well and the other side is struggling. And then, the defense has been struggling all year. It's forcing turnovers, putting the offense in scoring position, and the offense just crumbles. I mean, it just seems to just not be a very disciplined or, unified team in general. So I think until Texas starts playing that way and showing it, I'm not picking Texas to win this game. I'm just not. I think that Texas is getting them, in Texas fans' standpoint, at the worst possible time, because Kansas State is only looking better with each game. And I think that it's going to be, a huge challenge. And I think that at this point, it's really, really hard to give Texas any benefit of the doubt. So I'm definitely thinking that this is going to be Chris Kleiman starting off 1-0 against Texas in his 10 years head coach there.
Very interesting.
Well, Fitzy, real quick, too, special teams have been a disaster.
Interesting.
I think K-State may have turned its season around with Malik Knowles' kick return against Mississippi State.
Right.
That game a couple times could have gotten away from K-State. And Malik Knowles returns that kick 100 yards, and K-State finishes that game. And they walk out of SEC country feeling really good about themselves. Right. And Texas had that against Rice to cover. Like, Deshaun Jameson had a 98-yard kick return to cover against Rice. And since then, it's been muffed punts. It's been can't catch a fair catch. Their negative yardage in punt returns. It's their dead-ass last
hard to do
in FBS. Terrible. I mean, it's like, what, Taylor? It's like 9 returns for minus 12 yards. We're 9 games, whatever, into the season. This is embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
K-State, again, has been – special teams have always been a fulcrum that they've used to their advantage, and we'll see if they do that on Saturday in Austin. The game kicks at 2:30. That's Taylor Esters and Chip Brown, my buddies from the Horns 24/7 site. They're the best in the business covering Texas football, and the folks at 24/7 are lucky to have them. Guys, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining me on the Powercat Pregame Podcast. That's it for this segment of the Powercat Pregame Podcast. On the other side of this little break comes our analysts. They're lined up, all three of them ready to go as we continue this preview of the Cats and Horns on the Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Robbins Motor Company.
The experts from GoPowercat.com will return with more on the Powercat Pregame Podcast, presented by Robbins Motor Company.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify is here to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 15% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast.
Is your January looking dry? Get some lotion. Get a humidifier. And better yet, get Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery. With Drizzly, you can compare prices across local stores to get the best price on a huge selection of drinks perfect for dry January. Every single time. Non-alcoholic wines? Have a look. Ready-made mocktails? Grab a straw and order them up. Beer without the alcohol? Yep, take your pick. You can find all of them here, in the app, in that phone that's in your hand. Could it be any simpler? Nope, not a chance. So shop for great deals on all your dry January beverages or other drinks and get them delivered to your door or blanket fort, maybe. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations. And don't forget to lotion up your elbows. They're looking a little dry.
We now send it back to the Powercat Podcast. Joining you once again, it's Tim Fitzgerald and GoPowercat football analyst Marcus Watts.
Welcome back to the Powercat Pregame Podcast as we look at Kansas State at Texas. The Wildcats are 6-2 in the season. The Longhorns are 5-3. And we are sponsored by Robbins Motor Company, the dedicated team of automotive professionals at Robbins, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat will match you with a vehicle that suits your lifestyle and budget. Robbins Motor Company, title sponsor of the Powercat Pregame Podcast. And we kick off our analyst half of the podcast with the guy we always do it with, the one and the only Marcus Watts, in studio this week.
Yeah.
He's celebrating another win over Kansas by coming to the studio.
Yeah,
let's start there.
It worked out this week.
It did.
Probably the only time it's going to work out the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll make it work. It always sounds good. As long as your phone holds up, our setup works pretty well with calls. Boy, that was a dominating performance against Kansas. That was refreshing, and it's kind of like, this kind of feels like old times.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised. I honestly was. I thought K-State would struggle a little bit on defense, but this defense, week in and week out, just getting better. They just fly the ball. Their tackling's getting better. Obviously, it was going to struggle a little bit at the beginning of the year, and the first two Big 12 games, they did struggle a little bit. But now that they've gotten some games under them, know how coaches are going to call the games, how they want them to play, they're starting to step up and actually play to their abilities.
A.J. Parker being injured concerns me, but after what I saw last weekend with the running backs, going down to number 3 with Harry Trotter and guys below that and being so effective, I actually feel better about injury situations now than I did under Coach Snyder, to be really blunt. I feel like the corners are deeper than 2 guys and they're going to fill in. But still, A.J. Parker's been money this year.
Yeah, it's a big loss. But the thing is you can kind of hide it a little bit. And Texas really isn't a team that's going to kill you with the passing game. That's not their forte. They want to run the ball and run Sam Ehlinger. So, if you can manage on the outside, you may not be able to play as much man. You may have to play more zone, more cover 2. And as long as the front 4 and the linebackers can control the run game, then you can put more guys in coverage.
They are sneaky good in the passing game. Sam Ehlinger is 3rd in the conference at 297 yards a game. And, of course, Devin Duvernay is leading the Big 12 in receptions at 69 for the season and 800 yards. You know what? I really think if you take away Sam Ehlinger in the run, it changes them dramatically. And you've got to start there. I know they like to throw the ball, but his ability to run sets a lot of that up. And some of the run comes off of, just like Skyler with pass plays that don't develop and he takes off. But you can't let Sam Ehlinger run on you. You just can't. He's big and physical. He's like Colin Klein. But if you can take him away, you're in much better shape.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like Colin Klein when he was here. I mean, he's a bruiser. He's going to hit you. He's going to fall forward. He's always going to gain an extra 2 yards after contact. And so it's going to be important for K-State to just bottle him up, and you're not going to be able to arm tackle him. He's just too big and too strong. No. He's a big physical running back. That's what he is. And so K-State's going to have to control that, because if he's able to, have like one of those 80 to 100-yard rushing games, then it's going to hurt K-State in the fact that they're going to have to commit guys more to stopping the run, and which opens up the passing game. And with A.J. Parker out, it could become a headache. I don't like the fact that Texas had a bye week before. I mean, they have to have one eventually, but They were able to get a lot of guys healthy, and Texas has been beat up, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And it sounds like they're going to get a lot of those guys back. So you can't really look at Texas and what KU did to Texas because they're so thin on defense early in the year. And so it's going to be a completely different Texas team this week.
Is that a valid excuse for Texas? I mean, look, you recruit 4 or 5-star guys every year at every position, or you get high 3-star guys. The fact that they have 1 injury or 2 injuries, I'm like...
It's more than that, though.
You bring in your next guy, and he's still a 4-star guy.
Yeah, but when these guys haven't played it down, but they're playing some young guys, too, and they're the cohesiveness... Players not knowing what to do, they're just, they're playing slow because they're thinking too much because they don't play a lot. Then, it doesn't matter if you're a 4 or 5-star guy. Football's a team sport. It's not an individual sport unless you're on special teams. So, should they be able to beat KU or be able to play with or destroy KU, kind of like K-State did? Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
With the stars that they have at their university, but. KU went in there with a new offense that nobody's ever seen, probably weren't prepared for it at all, the RPO game, and they got exposed.
Texas is a little bit soft. Tom Herman's tried to toughen them up. They were soft under Charlie Strong. It's just like these guys are mentally weak, but their backs are against the wall. They're sitting at 5-3. They're getting themselves into big trouble right now. They still got a lot of games ahead of them that they can lose, including this weekend. They're favored by 5.5 as we record this earlier in the week. But I always wonder about Texas's psyche going into K-State games. And I find it hard to believe that even though they need this, they're going to be really stoked for Kansas State. I think they look past people because they look down on them.
They're not going to be looking down on Kansas State. I mean, Kansas State's had Texas's numbers over the years, and K-State's ranked. Gives them a chance. Texas is not ranked, so it gives them a chance to beat a ranked opponent. It's at home after a bye week. The players are itching to play. This is going to be one of those games which K-State has shown. I was a little worried after the hangover off of Oklahoma that they weren't going to come out ready to play. This is another one of those games that the players have. This is a tough 3-game stretch for K-State. Oklahoma, which I thought that they would lose, then playing your rival the next week, and then going to play in the other big powerhouse per se in Texas. If they can get away from this week with a win and finish 3-0 in this 3 weeks, that is a huge accomplishment.
And I love the approach Chris Kleiman has. I pointed out in a column earlier this week, Coach Snyder was get a little bit better every day. And Coach Kleiman is embrace the process. Be a process-based team program, not a results-based one. So worry about Monday, worry about Tuesday, worry about Wednesday. And when game rolls around, worry about that. And when you get into the game, worry about that play. Not the scoreboard, worry about that play. Win that play, win the next play. I love it. It just boils it down. And even if you're in a bad matchup, a matchup that the experts think is tough for K-State, like Oklahoma, when you don't think about winning the game, you think about winning the play. Mm-hmm. It makes it so much more easier for the psyche of particularly young guys to embrace. Yeah, I can beat these guys on this play, and I can do it on this play. And then it adds up, and what happens? They're winning.
Yeah, it's easier said than done to get a coach to make the players to think like that. And it seems like, the good thing is Coach Snyder is a lot like that. And so these players it's already ingrained in their heads is to play each play, win the play. And so when Coach Kleiman came in and you have the turnover, there's not a lot of change. Now, the terminologies may be different and stuff, but a lot of the same thinking. So it's easy. Now, this team is playing lights out. I hope they continue to do it and come away with the win against Texas. It'd be huge for the university. Not only that, but also in the recruiting aspects. These last 2 weeks have been huge for Coach Kleiman's staff and for the university.
We thought that K-State could get to 6 wins. We really didn't think after 8 weeks. After the Mississippi State game, we had them, winning the Super Bowl. But in fairness, what happened then was brought them back down to earth, and now I think they're found themselves again, and they're playing a better brand of football. But getting to bowl eligibility, getting that off your back, and now you can just play for better and better and better. It's got to be a good mental state to go into a game.
After a big win, the worst thing is a bye.
Right.
And that happened to K-State. After the Mississippi State game, they had a bye, went to Oklahoma State. And, to keep the thinking and the same thing that you're doing every week up until that point, it all changed and because of the bye week. So they've been able to go same week in and week out since Oklahoma now. And so we're TCU, Oklahoma, and, they just keep going. And the team, it's just the psyche of a player is just keep me in the groove, same thing every day. We're creatures of habits, almost to an annoying fault. But,
right.
That's what's, I think, honestly, even though I think that they'd like to have a bye week later in the season, having those 2 bye weeks early has helped this team in that they don't have to worry about having a bye week.
Yeah, I agree. I think a bye week after this week would be really nice heading into those final 3 games, but it is what it is. You've got them out of the way too early, but now you've built up a head of steam. You've come out of that bye week and you're rattling off wins. I feel good about this game. Sam Ehlinger, I have tremendous respect for him. I think I like his game, and mostly because he's a bulldog. He gets after you. He's hard to beat. He's hard to put down. But if they can limit his damage, I think K-State gets out of here with a win. You're less confident?
I'm not less confident because this team has proven me wrong week in and week out of what we're going to expect from this team. And this team seems to be gelling right now, the leadership and everything. It just seems to be cohesive. So I think K-State's going to be in this game. I just think it's a very tough game for K-State to win, especially with Texas coming off their bye week and with them getting so many players back that have been injured. But, if they play like they have the last 2 weeks, K-State will come away with a win.
The one thing you can always say about Texas is they have athletes, big, fast guys on the defense that could overwhelm that K-State offensive line, much like what Baylor did. They just couldn't get anything accomplished. So that's really, for K-State in every game, that's the matchup. Can the offensive line handle the opposing front seven? And if they can, K-State's in really good shape. They didn't against TCU, but the defense got the job done. Really, for K-State to function, run the ball, establish physicality. And that's what they did to Kansas. They just started beating them up from the very first possession and beat them up all afternoon.
Yeah, and what's K-State had trouble with all year?
3-man front defenses have given them trouble.
3-man front defenses have given them trouble. Don't be surprised to see some 3-man front with Texas having a bye week. They could easily put something in for a game like this.
And I think that's why we saw a lot of option from Kansas State at Kansas, because that 3-man front is less equipped at times to do that. And then KU's defense coordinator apparently doesn't know how to stop an option. Seems like a basic thing you probably want on your resume. Knows how to stop option.
Nobody runs it anymore.
I know, exactly. His name's Marcus Watts. He's been our football analyst for a number of years, and he is still the leader of the pack as we add more and more voices to our crew here at GoPowercat.com. And we appreciate Marcus stopping by to see us this week in the WTC Gig Power Studios. And now we continue our talk with our GoPowercat analyst by bringing in Brien Hanley. And Brien will be doing the post-game podcast this weekend after the Texas game with Riley Gates. I will be in Las Vegas covering the basketball game for the Wildcats, and unfortunately they're simultaneous, so I won't get a full view of the game. Yes, I'll be watching it on Press Row on my ESPN app, but I won't be really soaking in everything because I will be covering basketball and a big game for the Wildcats on the hardwood as they opened basketball season Tuesday night at Bramlage Coliseum. Brien, another big win. Back-to-back big wins, the third victory in a row for the Wildcats. They've really changed the context of their season after those 2 losses. Now 6-2, now bowl eligible, 4 games to play, starting at Texas. This is the big test, though, coming down the stretch. Out of these 4 games, this is the one that if they can get this one to me, baby, they really got it rolling. And I think Texas is going to be healthier, and they need this. This is going to be a great matchup.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be big for K-State, like you said. But I think it's a game where we need to put the pressure on ourselves to go win a game that we should be able to win. There's nothing wrong with having those expectations of wanting to go or expecting to go win a football game. Texas is good. Texas has lost some games. They've been injured. But let's make no mistake, Texas is a really good football team. But so is K-State. So now it's time to go prove it and go win this game. I like the matchup. I like the fact that we can dominate the line of scrimmage. And if we can continue to do that, I think things are going to go well Saturday.
It all comes down to stopping Sam Ehlinger. And, you know, when you talk about him, everyone wants to think about his running game. I know I do. But he's averaging almost 300 yards a game through the air. He chucks it around pretty good. And a big part of that is his running game makes you stay honest. You got to stay in, because if you just commit everyone to stop the pass, he just takes off on you and kills you.
Right.
But this is a Colin Klein type guy. Maybe throw first, and Colin was run first. But there's some real similarities in how they approach the game. Physical, strong, tough leaders that the team can take on their persona.
Yeah, he's really, really taken on the mantra of Texas, and basically his, outside of the coach, has really become the face of their program. And he's playing well. It's kind of what you said. You think of him first as a runner, but he's really, really made big strides throwing the football. So I just think it's one of those things to where he's going to be able to keep moving, keep going. Hopefully that we, like I said, we can have a guy maybe spy or just do what we do. Just, man up and dominate the line of scrimmage and keep them under control, because they really don't hand the ball off to their running backs very often. So if we can keep them under control running and turn them one-dimensional, I think we'll be okay.
Devin Duvernay, their top receiver, he is the top receiver in the Big 12, averaging 8.5 catches a game, 100 yards a game. They use this guy quite a bit. He's awfully fun to watch, and they've turned into quite the connection. But you're right, their top running back, Ingram, comes in and, in 10th in the conference in rushing. This is a game in which Ehlinger's kind of the guy. He's going to throw it, he's going to run it, and everyone knows that. But for me, really, it comes down to how Texas can defend. They've really struggled as of late because the injuries have piled up. Kansas went wild on them, although Texas found a way to win because Texas's offense was better than KU's beleaguered defense. For me, it's about K-State being able to come out and establish the run and do the things that K-State likes to do. They did it with a very talented Oklahoma team, and this is going to be another supreme test. Can they move off the line of scrimmage, move around really big athletic defensive linemen and linebackers? We're going to find out real quick in this game.
Yeah, I think that's going to be definitely going to be the key. K-State comes up with some different blocking schemes that I've ever seen. And they work, and I think they're outstanding. I think we're going to keep going back to some of those things. Like I'd never seen an outside zone play where the backside guard goes to that side, stops, and then kicks out the backside defensive end, and our running back is literally running in that hole. I've never seen anything like that. That's some of the things that K-State does. We're going to have to continue to do that and just continue, like I said, just both sides of the line of scrimmage, offense and defense. Getting out and running the football, but definitely stopping them from make them one-dimensional. If they have to throw on every down, that's K-State's advantage.
Right. It's an intriguing matchup. And as I mentioned, I feel like this really holds the key to the stretch for K-State. At 3 in a row, getting number 4, coming home to play West Virginia before you go to Texas Tech. You've got very tangible victories waiting if you continue to play good football. We know in this conference, if you don't play good on any day, you can lose a game. And then, of course, they close with Iowa State. But at 6-2, they're sitting pretty. Is it tough as a coach to keep your team focused? Because that's what Chris Kleiman keeps talking about, the process. Worry about this day. How tough is that to stay locked in?
I would say sometimes it is, Tim, but for this team, it doesn't seem to be that way. They're kind of cut from a different cloth. I think these guys are hungry. Missing out on a bowl game last year, that stings a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, realizing where you can go. There's at 6-2. I think that we have a very intelligent football team, and they understand if we keep winning, we win this game and the next, when we keep winning, where's that bowl game going to be? And I believe that the guys want to fight and just continuously get better and win football games. I mean, heck, we went out. I mean, I know this is looking way ahead, but we went out and the right things happened. We could be in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We just got to, again, and I'm not one to shy away. I don't believe you have to shy away from wanting what's out there. I don't believe you. I know you have to look at it day by day, but hey, here's the big picture, and this is how you climb the ladder to get there. And Texas is that first step.
It's really incredible to stop and think about it because those things are tangible. If they win out and let's say Baylor beats Oklahoma, Kansas State holds that tiebreaker with Oklahoma, but they really can't even stop to think about that. We can.
Correct.
They need to just keep grinding away at the process and really buying into it. And they have been lately. I think they lost sight a little bit when Big 12 play opened. They beat Mississippi State. And I think they might have thought it'd be a little more easy at Oklahoma State than it was, and they got hit in the mouth and didn't respond. And Baylor, it turns out, is just a really good football team. And K-State wasn't quite ready for that. I would be interested to see if K-State got a hold of Baylor again later in the season, what would happen.
Right.
I'm excited about this game. I'll have it recorded. I'll get to watch it a little bit later on Saturday night. It fascinates me. It really does because Texas has been so beaten up and they had the off week and they're coming back. But here they are. Kansas State is tied with Texas and Iowa State at 3-2. Oklahoma State sits behind them at 3-3. Oklahoma State and Kansas are one game ahead of everyone else in terms of number of games played in the conference. They're off, both teams, this weekend, and everyone will have 6 games in the pocket as we head into the final 3. Your feelings about this game? Is this one Kansas State can pull out?
Absolutely. I really feel this way. I'm not being a homer. I think you know me well enough. I'm not a homer. I just call it like it is. K-State can dominate both sides of the football. And I believe that they will dominate both sides of the football, especially on offensive line. And that's what I really mean. On both lines, I believe that they're just going to be able to dominate that and be able to move Texas where they want to move them and not be moved. And that's the thing. Our front seven is playing very, very well and not be moved, be in the right positions. So I believe that K-State is going to win this football game. It's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be a battle. It's not going to be a blowout. It's not going to be easy. But you know what? I don't think it should be easy. So I think we're ready.
I know this. You better not have the same kind of penalties you had at Kansas. Whether they're legit penalties or not, you can't carry 11 penalties and 100-plus yards and expect to win this game. You got to get back down to 4 and below like you have been.
Exactly, yeah. Can't play a sloppy game. We didn't play a sloppy game against OU, and we won. You're not going to don't expect to play a sloppy game and beat Texas. That's just that is not going to happen. That much I can tell you right now. We play a sloppy game turnover-wise, and it's not a clean game penalty-wise, we're going to lose. So we got to clean that up.
His name's Brien Hanley. He was on those great 97-98 K-State football teams, blocking for Michael Bishop and company, and he is one of our football analysts. He will be on hand in Austin for the Kansas State game, and he will team up with our own Riley Gates on a little change-up version of the Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Caddyshack Golf. Brien, I appreciate it very much, and have fun in Austin. I love that town.
I will. Thank you very much.
And now we bring in Kelly Stewart, also known as Kelly in Vegas on social media. She starred in the Showtime series Action, and you can find her at wagertalk.com and check out our wagertalk.com videos each week, breaking down the game from the gambling perspective from the experts at Wager Talk. And if you need a gambling proxy service, look up Kelly in Vegas proxy service. Kelly, I get to see you this weekend.
Yes. I don't know if I'm going to make it to that basketball game or not.
No. I'm
kind of mad about this scheduling.
I know.
Whose idea was this?
I know. You schedule the basketball game. UNLV doesn't care about K-State football, but they picked 1 o'clock, which seemed like the window most likely to be overlapped with a football game.
I think my aunt even texted me that Bruce thought that it was going to be a nighttime game. And
it doesn't make sense that it's not a Saturday night.
Especially in Vegas.
Why
not? Why not give everybody all day to, have fun, watch football, and then get to watch some basketball? So K-State basketball, looked terrible in the first half last night. Came back, got the cover, at least if you bet the closing number they did. So I was pretty happy with the second half performance from those guys. So hopefully they put on a good show for us here in Vegas, and I'll let you know if I end up making it or not. I keep going back and forth. Football just has more special place in my heart than basketball. And I'm like, if I get there and the service isn't very good and we actually pull this upset on Texas, I'm going to be not very happy that I missed the game.
I agree. I mean, let's be honest here. It's an early season basketball game against a significant Big 12 football game. It's an easy choice if you have a choice, although I think some K-Staters in Vegas are going to get to the game. I get to see a buddy, a fraternity brother that's out there, Al Jones, and, you know, I'll just make the most of it. I will be watching on Press Row as I cover basketball and have my ESPN app going on my computer also. It'll be really a nice effort by me to really focus on basketball.
Yeah, to try to multitask there.
You know, I've got to watch both, and I will tape football. I mean, that will be in my DVR, but it would be nice to see it, at least know what happened during the course of the game. Real quick, K-State basketball on Tuesday night tipped off, and they looked a little like I expected in the first half. North Dakota State's a pretty good mid-major team. They went to the tournament and returned almost everyone, and they struggled in the first half. I thought they'd struggle in the whole game, to be honest. No slight to K-State. That's a compliment towards North Dakota State. And then they got it going in the second half. This is going to be a little journey. I don't think K-Staters are quite ready. I don't think most fans understand how good the defense was in the past from just repetition and those guys knowing exactly what to do. And it's all got to be learned by some young players.
Yeah, no, absolutely it does. And I still have a decent amount of faith. I texted you yesterday, hey, I'm going to go down to Circa. They have college football or college basketball season win totals. I wanted to put down a couple, and I wanted a reason to cheer for K-State because I'm probably not going to get involved in K-State games that much this year because of last year. They're going to be overvalued early on. Yeah. Yesterday, they were 14.5-point favorites. It closed at 11. So if you bet it early, you bet North Dakota State early, you got the cover. If you bet it late and you were late to the party, you did not. So a lot of those guys that I friends with had 12 yesterday. And I told them, I said, you know, you're a little late here. The wise guys played it early because North Dakota State is a good basketball program. So we're going to see some ups and downs with K-State, but I do think that this team can win 18 games.
Yeah, it's 17.5 is the over-under on wins, right?
Yes.
I would take that. I would go over on that. I think they will be better than that. I just think it's going to be a little bit of an adventure here, a little roller coaster ride, because losing those kind of ingredients off your team hurts you in so many ways, but it really hurts you in defense. Those guys were so good defensively. But it'll be interesting to watch them in person out in Vegas and, you know, actually have to work. It's going to be hard for me. You know, it's like taking me to the circus.
That's why I keep going back and forth. I'm like, you know, if ticket prices are relatively cheap on Saturday morning, and I get off work and I can just cruise over from Caesar's Palace, I don't see why I won't at least go watch part of the game. 2 years ago when K-State was here and lost, I forget who they lost to in the very first round. I got mad, and then I gave away my second set of tickets. Sure enough, they won the game. You know, I kind of wonder if maybe I'm a bad luck charm, though they did beat KU last year when I was there. So we'll see. We'll see how it ends up playing out. But I have a little bit more, I guess I should say I have higher hopes for this team than probably most people do. Ken Palm is a very respected college basketball guy that puts out his numbers, and he has us 1-17 games. I think a couple could go our way, including a KU game or two. I was not that impressed with KU last night. No, and, you know, they were playing a little bit better opponent than K-State did. But, you know, they're a young team, too. It's going to be growing pains. And speaking of growing pains, Kansas State football went through some earlier this year, and they seem to be roaring out of those growing pains now at 6-2. Heading to Texas this weekend, they opened as a 5.5-point underdog. What has happened to the number since the opening number? Yeah, it's gotten bet up to 7, and I think that's what bookmakers expected. I had a Texas buddy text me and say, hey, why is this number so high? I said, I don't know. I made the game Texas minus 2.5. This is nuts. We do know Texas is a very public team. We've seen it time and time again. But, man, Coach Kleiman is right up there with Matt Rule for Big 12 Coach of the Year. Tom Herman is just Tom Herman. He does well in the underdog role, but as a favorite, he's just not that great. 8-19 in his last 27. Like I said, he's known for being that scrappy underdog when he was at Ohio State, Houston, and now at Texas. But this is a tough one for me. You have this K-State offense. It looks like with Thompson, you know, last week you and I talked about with Brown and Gilbert being out. What does that mean? Next thing you know, we have a third-string running back that comes in. Well, my buddy that's a KU fan texted me at halftime, you guys don't need a running back. You have Skylar Thompson. I said, you make a good point. 342 yards on the ground. Listen, this is just a K-State team that is playing with the chip on their shoulder. I joked with athletic director Gene Taylor. We follow each other on Twitter, and I had heard the funny story about Les Miles supposedly asking where the Governor's Cup was, and I'd seen different rumors, and I messaged him. He goes, it's not as cool of the story that's going around on social media, but yes, they had asked, hey, will it be in attendance? Will we be able to celebrate on the field if we were to win the game? He goes, it wasn't as cool as the fabricated story. And I'm like, man, I love that fabricated story so much more. And last week, K-State football had so much motivation because of the trash talk factor. Everybody thought they were going to be in a letdown spot, and you don't have letdown spots against rivalries. Now, this is a Texas team that K-State has owned for a better part of my adult life, though recently they haven't played well against Texas. So this is just something to think about here when looking to bet this game. I don't think Tom Herman's defense is good at all. As a matter of fact, I would rank them in the very bottom of the Big 12 almost, right up there with KU's defense. And we're going to see that same scenario play out this week. Can K-State's defense step up like they did the last 2 weeks? And I think they can. There's an old adage, take the better defense plus the points. I don't want to tout K-State too much, but I think this line is too high, Tim.
Yeah, even if they lose, 7 seems like an awfully big gap for a Texas team that's struggling to find itself. Granted, they've had injuries. They have been beaten up in the secondary. That has hurt them. But to what degree, I will argue, probably not as dramatic as Texas fans want to lean on. And there's something going wrong right now.
That'll be the excuse. If K-State goes down there and pulls off the upset, that'll be the excuse. Yeah. We're hurt. We're banged up. They had a week off. They've had some time to rest. They've had some time to lick their wounds from almost losing to KU. I think Texas is going to come out rolling. And, K-State's defense is going to have their hands full. I think Ellinger doesn't get enough credit. I think the kid's a pretty good quarterback. And it's going to be a great game. But, Coach Kleiman's still got to hang his hat on that 27-2 straight up mark in his last 29 games. And, we've joked before that he really doesn't know how to lose. So hopefully he keeps that one going.
It'll be a big challenge for K-State. I think the biggest challenge remaining in this season for the Wildcats as they head down the home stretch in the final third of the schedule, the number that always jumps out at me, K-State owns a 10-9 advantage in this series with Texas. Not many programs can say they have a winning number against Texas. And K-State has lost 2 in a row.
Yeah, and that's what I joked. It was even in women's basketball, baseball, track. Anytime that I saw on social media that we beat Texas in something, fly fishing or whatever, our bass fishing team, it's just great because that literally has been the joke. So I hope we get back to those winning ways. If we lose at Texas, I won't be surprised. Again, the numbers say that Texas, I think, is probably a field goal better at home. We'll see. I think there's going to be a lot of purple in Austin, too. I know a lot of Texas fans that aren't going to the game. Many people have asked me, hey, do you want to buy my tickets? Are you going to go? I'm not, obviously, but it's something to consider. So the, 8 to 10,000 K-State fans that are there, and, we have so many alumni that live in the state of Texas, hoping that, they can make a little bit of impact down there.
Well, it's going to be a really good game, I think. Texas is reaching the desperation level at 5-3. They do get a lot of their injured players back. Tom Herman needs the win, but I also sense that there's real discontent in the locker room right now. So this is a very fascinating game. There's so many moving parts here. I would certainly take K-State and a number like 7, but then again, I'm not a gambler. I won't be at the window when I'm in Vegas, much to the disappointment of my friend Kelly.
I know. We'll see. Maybe we'll see what the number ends up being on K-State UNLV, and I'll bring you down a ticket to give you something to cheer for.
Let's move on to the Big 12. It's a little bit more full slate than it was last week, although we do have 2 teams idle, Kansas being one of them. Intriguing game. Baylor goes to TCU. Alex Delton quit the team at TCU this week after being passed over during last week's game. I think Alex said, you know what? Enough of this. I was told I was going to be the starter. Now I'm not playing. Why am I even in Fort Worth, Texas? And he's left the team. So TCU seems to be having some issues, but the Frogs are at home where they're much better, and Baylor comes in unbeaten. How do you feel about this game?
This is a really interesting line here. Baylor, 2.5-point road favorite against a TCU team that I thought looked great against Texas. I played them against Texas, especially as a 1-point favorite. But last week, even Oklahoma State without their best player looked good for the better part of that game. I do think that Gundy needs a little bit more coaching credit. I think sometimes we look at him in his mullet and think he's a dumb redneck, but he's a pretty good coach, and I think he doesn't get as much respect as he probably should. Also, I can say the same thing for Gary Patterson. I think Gary Patterson's a great coach. I think this is going to be a really good game. I lean towards TCU with the 2.5, but as you mentioned, no Alex Delton leaves them pretty thin there in the quarterback depth chart, and so it's interesting to see if somebody gets hurt, what happens. And have to think about that. I don't want to step in front of this Baylor train. 8-0, undefeated. Baylor has not impressed me. I looked at West Virginia last Thursday night, and I wussed out. And sure enough, West Virginia kept it close and played a good game. But, yeah, Gary Patterson, 6-1 versus really good opponents, like above 700, almost perfect opponents. It's tough. This is a really tough one, but I lean Baylor.
Texas Tech goes to West Virginia in a game you couldn't pay me to watch. Any thoughts on that one?
That's exactly what I was going to give you. I don't have much on this. I'm looking at this one saying, why is Texas Tech a 2.5-point road favorite over this West Virginia team that just took Baylor to the wire? And that's just because West Virginia is young. They're not disciplined. They don't bring a lot to the table here. I lean towards West Virginia in this one, but there's just no way I'm laying 2.5 more than anything with Texas Tech on the road. I think that's what this one really boils down to. Sure, the Red Raiders have been competitive. They upset Oklahoma State. They lost to Baylor in overtime. They hung around with Iowa State. They lost on that weird, fluky, missed field goal that KU got to kick again. So they appear to be the better team here. Eventually, the clock strikes midnight for Cinderella, and I know that happened in Lawrence, but I think it happens again in Morgantown.
Iowa State at Oklahoma in the game that might gain the most interest in Vegas at the window in terms of Big 12 games, because it's hard to figure out what's the numbers look like now at Iowa State at Oklahoma.
Yeah, this one's interesting. Oklahoma just a 14.5-point favorite, total of 60. This is the Iowa State team that I was mad. I didn't bet Oklahoma State. We talked about it. I didn't bet it. This one is tough. You have an Oklahoma Sooners team off that K-State loss. Then they get to have a bye week and just let that stew. The numbers come out yesterday. I think they were 8th or 9th when I was looking. And then they're talking about, is Oklahoma's loss to K-State worse than Georgia's loss to South Carolina, right? And we have to talk about these things. I think this Oklahoma team comes out with a vengeance. I think they lay the proverbial hammer on Iowa State. And more importantly, the number is low because Iowa State's been competitive in this game the last few years. I'm looking towards the Sooners here. The Sooners 15-0 against the spread in games when they're off a bye week, and that's good. They're a well-coached team. I think Lincoln Riley is going to have these boys ready, and Iowa State's not going to know what hit them. I
agree with you. I think the 14.5 is intriguing. You get over the 14 mark, it gets a little more dicey, but I think the 60 points, I just like Oklahoma on both numbers. I think they're going to go over and cover the 14.5. I think they're just going to open it up on a pretty good Iowa State team, but this game being in Norman, I think everything happening, the loss, the week off, and then that college football playoff ranking coming out and really being a slap in the face to the Sooners, I think they're going to unload.
Yeah, from a power ratings perspective, I don't think it's a slap in the face. We all knew out here in Vegas for the last couple of weeks, Ohio State was number one.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a slap in the face, but Oklahoma is definitely going to perceive it as one, and I don't blame them. I would too. I would be like, hey, this isn't right. How is Georgia not being penalized for losing to a crappy South Carolina team? I think it was in the way that K-State won as well. They dominated start to finish. I think there's a lot of things that go into it, but I think if they want to be back in that consideration, they're going to have to lay the hammer here for Iowa State. And I like Matt Campbell and what he's doing. He might have some tricks up his sleeve, but 14.5 seems like one of those sportsbook gifts you get every once in a while.
And if you're a Sooner fan, you better start cheering for the Longhorns or any opponent playing K-State, because K-State has the tiebreaker on you. And if they win out and you lose one more, you may not be in the Big 12 championship game, and that would rock the college football world if the Sooners were.
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. I actually think it's going to be probably K-State Baylor in the Big 12 championship game. So we're going to see how that ends up playing out.
Very good. Her name's Kelly in Vegas, and that wraps up our analyst section of the Powercat Pregame Podcast. Kelly, thank you very much. I will see you maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow I'll wander over to Caesars and track you down.
That sounds great, Tim. We'll talk to you soon.
We've heard from the GoPowercat staff as well as our GPC analysts and Chip Brown and Taylor Esters from Horns 24/7, the Texas site on the 24/7 Sports Network. Winners of 3 in a row and now ranked 16 in the college football playoffs rankings. K-State is about to venture into the unknown by facing a Texas team in Austin that is either angry and backed into a corner or on the verge of collapse. Subscribers to GoPowercat.com can read my 5 Keys to Victory analysis Friday at GPC, but in a minute I will give you my prediction for this game. As we wrap up this week's Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Robbins Motor Company, where they strive to earn lifetime business and build relationships selling quality cars, trucks, vans, SUVs, and offering top-notch parts and service, I remind you that a subscription to GoPowercat.com now comes with a free no-ads subscription to CBS's all-access streaming service. It adds more than $100 of value to your subscription when you sign up for our award-winning coverage of K-State sports at GoPowercat. I will be in Las Vegas this weekend covering basketball, so Riley Gates will step in and GoPowercat football analyst Brien Hanley, and he will break down what took place between the Longhorns and Wildcats with our Powercat Postgame Podcast. And now it's time for my game prediction, and I'm not about to bet against these cats. Kansas State 31, Texas 27. I'm GoPowercat publisher Tim Fitzgerald. It's K-State versus Texas, Saturday at 2:30 p.m. in Austin, Texas.
You've been listening to the Powercat Pregame Podcast presented by Robbins Motor Company. Powercat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.